Vice Mayor, happy to report on communications that we don't have any communications
Thank you, sir.
in the agenda packet.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, public comment. Members of the public may comment on any matter not on this agenda. Please limit comments to 3 minutes. Members of the public may comment on items on the agenda when the subcommittee considers that item. To make a public comment, use the raise hand icon on your smart device or desktop, or dial *9 if you're using just your telephone. Irene, I only see one person in the public, and no hands up.
That's correct. Chair, no hands are up.
Seeing none.
Vice Chair, if we can just, before we proceed, do a roll call vote. I mean, a roll call for our presence.
Okay, absolutely. Irene, would you mind?
Not at all. Okay, so Chair Cruz, absent, excused. Vice Chair Lamb,
Present.
Police Chief Ferguson,
Present.
City Manager Kelly,
Present.
Fire District Board Member Avancino, currently absent. Fire District Board Member Giovanato, currently absent, excused. And Fire Chief Jenkins.
Present.
Thank you. And I also note for the record that the Assistant City Manager, Community Development Director Thompson is present in the meeting.
Thank you, Irene. I appreciate that. With Mayor Cruz not able to make this meeting, I am the chair of this meeting, and so it's my first one. So thank you for having me. I will need somebody to approve the minutes from February 8th, 2021.
And Vice Mayor, Chair, I'll just reflect that District Board Member Avicino joined the meeting
At 5:36.
With that, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the February 8th, 2021 meeting.
Thank you, sir. We have a second.
I'll second the minutes, Chief Jenkins.
Thanks, Chief Jenkins. Appreciate that. All in favor? All right. Moving on. Current items for discussion. Update on vegetation management activities in the city and district.
Yeah, so a lot of stuff happening with regards to vegetation management. I'll kind of take in a couple chunks. First, we'll talk about the city weed abatement program. Inspections are currently underway. I would say the first round of inspections are complete. We've completed approximately 50 inspections that needed to be addressed. And the second round of inspections will begin next week. We're already seeing some pretty good compliance just after our initial inspection, so that's good. Historically, our compliance rate throughout the city limits on this project is really, really good. This year, we have received a couple dozen complaints, maybe up a little bit from previous year due to COVID. I think last year was pretty quiet overall. This year, we have people out and about, walk-ins to the fire station, or people being engaged and contacting the fire department directly for complaints, and those are all being addressed. I suspect we will have any non-compliant parties their second letter by like the 23rd or the 21st, and then notice to the city for anyone who failed to comply by the 23rd for continued steps towards abatement. The LRA local responsibility area inspections, which are just outside the city limits, pretty much the rest of the flats and Valley 4 of Cloverdale, that program is started. It's up and running for inspections. Those are going to take definitely a few months to get all of those completed because those are much larger parcels, typically gated with animals, and the parcels are much larger. So we're roughly looking about 8 to 10 inspections a day on that front as well. Overall, I think most of the vegetation management inspections are looking pretty good. I know Del Webb's always a big concern, and they've done a much better job this year. Pretty aggressive weed abatement and mowing as compared to years past. That area is tricky, gets a lot of attention, but it takes a lot of work to just remember people that or remind people that the clearance is really from the back of your house to where it becomes very dense and thick where it needs to be abated. So we're looking for that 100-foot clearance there, not necessarily all the way up into the mountainside. That's a little bit unrealistic of a clearing process. So a lot of work and education goes on there. So I think that's it for the vegetation management activities currently going on. If there's any questions you'd like to answer, just let me know.
And Vice Mayor Chair, just a couple of updates from the city side. Wanted to share with the subcommittee that the city applied for a grant for vegetation management activities at the Porterfield Creek Open Space Preserve. The funding request is for $150,000 for about 4 years of vegetation removal, thinning of some of the more obnoxious vegetation, and also removal of some of the debris and undergrowth. The plan would be, if we're funded, to coordinate with Chief Jenkins and also Chief Tuberville from Geyserville Fire to assist with some vegetation management, chipping, maybe controlled burning, and also understory thinning and removal on key sections of the open space to help mitigate the potential impact of fire. Hopefully we'll get the funding for the grant, but we haven't heard back yet. Ultimately, council did support putting funding in the budget to start this first year, and we'll coordinate with. I already had a discussion with Chief Jenkins, and we'll coordinate with Chief Tuberville as well, as get crews up there to initiate activities as soon as possible, especially at the interface with Clover Springs or Del Webb. I think the goal is to kind of get it in. Chief, was it about 12 acre increments? I think, since that is more of a manageable activity.
Yeah, the targeted areas of chunks of acreage like that down low near the structures really needs to be the kind of first phase of that project. And if we can get that cleaned up, and then maybe each year we take on a little bit more of a chunk to get a little deeper into the park.
Right. In addition to the applying for the grant for the open space, our park and maintenance crews completed some vegetation management along the river trail, about 8 feet of each side of the trail, just making sure any high weeds and grass is all kind of trimmed back. An area where there's a lot of pedestrian movement. Didn't go up into the some areas where it's on the kind of the hillside, higher elevation, but definitely trimmed it back to kind of create that buffer along the trail section, throughout the river park. And Chair, I'll leave it to you if you want to give an update on your coordination and leading up activities with the county and SAC crews to get some vegetation management down adjacent to the Russian River area where there's been some recent fire activity.
Okay, thank you, David. So I've been working on getting SAC crews and probation crews and permission from the county, or help from the county and state to do vegetation management, basically from McCrae Road all the way to All Coast along the riverbanks and down in the riverbed. We actually have got approval for a lot of it, and we're working to see how far the SAC crews can go and how much they can cover to see what we will actually do. The part that's privately owned has given us approval for $15,000 worth of vegetation management, and that goes from the bridge to All Coast basically. And the email went out today. I know a lot of you are probably on it, that basically just updating, saying it's moving forward and we're doing our best to get everything in order. We have approval to use tractors, trucks, chippers, anything we can down there. So it's moving forward, and hopefully we'll be going into fruition in the next couple of weeks. Any questions? Anyone? Anything else? Great.
How do you decide which houses to inspect?
In the city, it's just based upon field surveys and historical knowledge and complaints. So that's how it's done within the city limits. We basically drive all around and have kind of a database, and we go year to year and continue off that database. In the LRA portion outside of the city, it's site inspection of every parcel. It's nearly 500 parcels in the LRA.
Chief, you had mentioned a while back, I think it was you, said something about having access to a chipper program. Was that you, or was that someone
Yeah,
else?
there are two options for chipper program. One's through the county. You can sign up through their website through PRMD fire prevention side for their chipper program. And then we have a chipper through North County Fire at the Guysville station that their crews regularly use. It's in high use now, but there might be opportunities to possibly use that chipper at times as well.
Great, thank you. Appreciate that. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none. Next is the update on fire season. Chief Jenkins.
Yeah, so like they say, every year is going to be the worst. You never know. It's all based upon, winds and lightning and winds. But it's drying out this year. We're looking at drought conditions. We've kind of been here before, so the state and height of awareness is there. As far as what the district's doing, we've added our seasonal firefighters. They're employed now and up staff on the engine. We've added 5 new additional volunteers. We are, trained and kind of ready to go this year, like we do every year. So we'll kind of see what it brings us. We've seen, a bunch of information coming out about, how things are drying out quickly and whatnot. And so, but with those updates, we did see a bit of potential of some thicker marine layers in the month of July. We'll kind of see how that plays out. Going into heat spell here, I think we're going to have a definitely hot few days. But if that's not pumped by a bunch of winds, I think we'll be fine right now. The moistures aren't super critical in my period. We still have a lot of shaded fuel breaks. And so if there's a big fire, I think our chances of catching that at this point in time of the year are really good. I think that concludes that. If you want any other questions, let me know.
Any questions for Chief? Great, thank you, Chief. I appreciate that. It's very cut and dry. I like it. All right, C, enforcement of no parking in private driveways. Is that going to be Chief Ferguson?
Vice Mayor, I believe that item was placed by Mayor Cruz, and I think this may pertain more to fire than police, because of the private property aspect of the red painted curbs on private property. But I'll defer to both Chief Jenkins and Chief Ferguson on that.
I'll take it first. Go ahead, Chief.
I was just simply going to say, yeah, we can't even say Chief Jason at this point. I'll just take it and say I wasn't 100% sure why this was placed on there. As far as enforcement aspect, if law enforcement needs to step up and actively enforce these areas, if there's a general area that there's more of a complaint where there's parking in red curbs and or blocking driveways, certainly if we're aware of it, we'll do our part. So I'll just add that to it and then turn it over to Chief Jenkins.
Yeah, thanks, Chief. That's perfect. We haven't had any really compelling issues or complaints come to us in quite a few years with this. There are some neighborhood developments that have long setback flag lots. And when I say long, not that long, maybe 150 feet, something like that. Sunrise Hills, there's a few of them. So there are some areas where it was initially marked as no parking, and it kind of became neighborhood disputes a bit. For the most part, they haven't been big issues for us, and we haven't dealt with any of those in quite a few years. So yeah, if we see something, we've always referred that to law enforcement if we thought it was a problem. When they really are on private property, at the same time, I'd prefer that the property owners kind of work it out if they can, unless it really is an access or issue for us. If it is that we need the fire truck to get to a certain point and we really want to force that, we'll turn that over to law enforcement. And when we've done that in the past, it's worked out and worked out quickly. So we'll maybe have to hear from Martha Cruz if she's got something specific on it.
Thank you, Chief Jasons. I appreciate that. Just quick questions on it. So you talked about Sunrise Hills, and I'm familiar with a lot of those long driveways. How much room do you need in there, Jason? Jenkins, sorry. There's cars parked on your side. Say it's because I know your trucks are what, 8 feet wide?
Yeah,
I mean,
8 by 20 is typically a fire truck. We always want absolute minimum of 10 feet, 10 to 12 feet of pulling in. That's usually always there, just in the original design of those parcels. And I think the fire department was involved in plan check and review of that we required that fire lane. It's nice to have, it's not an absolute have to have. If we pull our truck and get it off the main part of the roadway, we'll be able to do what we need to do in there without problem. So I just put myself in their shoes a little bit. If they lived right there, you know, if you could never pull a vehicle right in front of your house, how problematic that could be at times. So there's a bit of how do you enforce that? What's realistic? What is absolutely right? It ends up being on private property, so it's a bit tricky for me to kind of enforce that as well. But so if there's issues, we just got to kind of take them case by case and look at them and make sure, because sometimes we've had fire lanes that are painted by fire lanes that were never even required by law. When houses go for sale and things change, boom, neighbors don't want people parking next to the house, so they'll red curb it for no reason. So we've had some issues over the years, but for the most part, if there's an issue that pops up, just get it in our hands and we'll evaluate it and take it from there.
Thank you. I was just curious because I know there's like the no hammerheads or anything at the end of those driveways, and I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
If something special. Thank you very much. Any other questions on that? Anyone? And I'll relay to Mayor Cruz that if she wants to bring up something else, if it was related to certain developments or anything, that she can bring it up at the next meeting, put it back on the agenda for you.
Perfect.
Okay, information only memos. I see none. Anything, Irene? Anything new?
No, Vice Chair.
Thank you. Future agenda items. Anyone have anything to put on for the next agenda?
Chair Lance, I don't have any items or aware of any future agenda items to bring forward at this time.
Thank you, sir. All right, no pending items. And good of the order. Kevin, I see you came off mute.
Oh, I was just going to say, boy, you're doing a record time here.
These are the kind of meetings I like.
Just go to the order. I am processing the permits for the safe and sale use of fireworks. I've been kind of holding off to the absolute dire last minute to do so. The safe and sane display for the aerial fireworks show, that permit was signed today. I'll probably sign the other two. They're really pushing hard. They need to know if they can proceed or not. So I'll probably process those on Wednesday. And I'm sure that it sounds like council and possibly the fire district will be taking this matter up at some point in time to figure out how to give a good resolution to fireworks for Cloverdale in the future.
Thank you, Chief. I appreciate your concern on that and holding out to check weather and everything else that you're concerned with. Okay, if nothing else, I guess we get to adjourn. That is a fast meeting.
Very quick.
Chair.
To actually eat dinner on time tonight. All right, we'll adjourn to Monday, October 11th at 5:30, and hopefully we'll come up with some future agenda items for that meeting. So thank you, everyone.
All right, bye-bye.
See you guys.
Thank you.